I want to thank everybody for coming today. And before we get started, I'm going to ask one of the governor's floor leaders to lead us in a moment of prayer here.
I don't know why I picked the floor leader to lead in prayer. Maybe something there, but let's pray together. Lord, we are grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity to gather and to make decisions that impact the people of the state of Georgia. And we know that those are important responsibilities, both for the people bringing information to us and to us as we make those decisions. So we just ask your wisdom. We ask your guidance. We ask that in all that we do, that the decisions that we make honor and glorify you. Thank you for everything you do for us. Most importantly, thank you for your grace. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're here today to hear House Bill 486. So, Representative Petrie, if you want to explain it from there, or go to the podium, whichever one you want to do.
Whichever you prefer.
It's up to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we have LC 372384. Make sure we've got the right version. And this bill is a result of a meeting with the Department of Community Health and the Department of Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health and DBHDD, and an attempt to, quite frankly, reduce a regulatory burden on providers who are trying to keep people in the community longer and to help the state to be effective in keeping people in the community longer, but also for less. So this ultimately is all about trying to give people the ability to live where they want to live for as long as possible, and to do so in a non-institutional setting, which is also beneficial to taxpayers. And so to that end, there is the ability to currently provide services through proxy caregivers that was established back in 2010 here in the legislature. And we're amending that today in this bill in an attempt to reduce what has become a regulatory burden that has made that act largely less successful than it could be. And that is because of the kind of unintended consequences of rules and regulations that have been created to enforce the act have made it difficult for providers to be able to financially accommodate those rules. And so there was a meeting with both departments and with both commissioners in an attempt to find a way to reduce some of these regulations on providers so that we get the same quality of care, we get the same focus on protection of individuals, but we do so in such a way that we also make it where providers can afford to do it, and we take away those things that maybe do not directly relate to quality of care, but are just problematic if you're going to be able to hire people and train them and keep them on the job, and also that takes into account the turnover rate in the healthcare industry that we're in. And so this bill, in an attempt to get language that allows the department to be able to make those changes, let me move this around a little bit here, amends the current act, and as you'll see on line, begins mostly on line 35, 34, and basically the language is between 34 and 41, Mr. Chairman, and that language there is really what is going to allow the department to implement some changes that will allow providers to be able to operate where in such a way that facilities are not treated quite like individuals that are being served individually in the community to make it more efficient to operate. And so the language here, I do want to come back in a minute and talk about an amendment, but the language here makes it clear that the Department of Community Health and the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities approval of training curricula specifically designed for the purpose of implementing the health maintenance activity of medication administration to be implemented by such proxy caregivers employed or contracted to providers of home and community-based services, community residential alternative services, or community living services. Such rules may permit providers to train proxy caregivers in accordance with the selected curriculum or otherwise provided in rules, regulations, and policies. So this is going to allow the department to establish a curriculum and then allow providers to operate accordingly based on that curriculum, and ultimately will allow, I think the goal by the department, and y'all need to speak more specifically to these issues, is to have is to focus more on medication aids. What do we call it? Certified medication aids that will allow much of this issue to be resolved, because the majority of the time proxy caregivers currently are being used for administering medications. And the department might need to
All right,
more
does anyone on the committee have a question for
directly speak
Representative
to it.
Petrie? Representative Rogers.
Representative Petrie, Chairman Benton, is this your bill? Is that right?
It is.
Okay,
but,
I'm going to address this.
Mr. Petrie's a little more knowledgeable on this particular subject than I am, so I asked him to carry it.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Representative Petrie, I know that you've got a lot of experience in this and in your area, and I know in my area, there's a lot of rural health care aspects involved too. And we're having, it seems to me that all across the state right now, we're looking at health care, but rural health care is a big thing. And I know finding the right people for that, would this help with that situation whatsoever, making certain that we still have the quality of care there, but maybe streamlining it a little bit?
I think so. Representative, I appreciate the question. I think so in that it doesn't speak directly to that, but here's what you have. What this ultimately is about is allowing people to age in place, and yes, it is less likely that in rural areas you have as many options. So I think in that regard, yes, I think it does help people wherever they are to have the ability to live wherever they choose to live when they're debilitated. And oftentimes in rural areas you have less options.
And as a follow-up to that, it's probably less of a burden on the families, because a lot of families have the choice that they're going to have to make that, well, we're going to have to move mom and daddy somewhere else, and then they're going to be away from the family, which is not good, or they're going to have to drive, or they're going to have to take them in, or whatever. So basically what we're doing is we're presenting, not preventing, hopefully preventing problems, but presenting a number of different options for families while streamlining the bureaucracy.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question for Representative Petrie? Okay, we've got several people that have signed up to speak on the bill. I'll take them in order. I will say now that right now you have as much time as you need, as long as you don't abuse that privilege. So Stephen Neff, come forward, please.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Steve Neff. I'm standing today in support of House Bill 486 on behalf of the Georgia Association of Community Care Providers. I have my legislative chair provider from Douglas, Georgia, Charles Harper, who's in the business. We support this bill. We support the amendment that Representative Petrie was going to discuss. This bill does help give some determination of the department with regards to training and some of the excess training we feel that's been necessary within health and safety reasons. But I'll let Charles Harper speak so he can speak more directly to it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr.
Thanks
Harper?
for the opportunity to be here. You guys know I've been working on this pretty much from day one, along with some of my peers, and we do support this. This bill allows us to give options to families many times, especially in the personal care homes and I have 3 companies along with my wife. She's really the boss. We do DD group homes, we do personal care home and private home care. And really I'd like to speak today or ask you a question or make it a point that the bill as it's written, and I don't want to do anything to slow the bill down, but the bill that as it's written, in many cases, it looks like it is specific to the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. But we use proxy caregivers in personal care homes all across the state, and I think it would be a mistake to limit this bill to just amending the proxy caregiver rules for the Department of Behavioral Health community and not make it across the board and let DCH be the driving factor in that. And because we couldn't, it would be very, very hard to have one set of rules for private home care or for personal care homes and a different set of rules for the Department of Behavioral Health. And with all due respect to the Department of Behavioral Health, in that side of my business, it's very, very complicated and it's very, very highly regulated, while in personal care homes, it's a little bit less regulated. So it seems to me like it might be kind of difficult for the Department of Behavioral Health to write these regs or to amend this law that may apply to the Department or rather to personal care homes. So I think this really should be a DCH issue more than a Department of Behavioral Health issue, but that's just my opinion. And also, as Representative Petrie knows, some of you other folks, I've been up here a long time advocating for my clients, both aging and the Department of Behavioral Health folks. I've been through 100 different meetings of we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do the other, and it seems like at this point in time in the chronological order, everybody's excited about it, and then when you guys done with session, it just kind of dries up and it dies away. And the only thing that I would ask, and I think this would be a question for Legislative Council, if we could put a timeline that this work be completed by whatever the department it is, and what I would ask is that I think if we can, I think September 1 would be a viable option because we can rewrite anything in 3 or 4 months. But thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Okay, all right, that's a good idea. Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Harper? Okay, thank you, sir. Juliana McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am here representing the Service Providers Association for Developmental Disabilities, and we've been working with the chair and with the Department of Community Health and Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, as well as Representative Petrie and several other providers, and working together to deal with this issue. And so, but at this time, I'm going to ask the Executive Director for SPAD, Diane Willis, and she's going to address the committee just to give, to recognize our full support, but just to tell you just a little bit about what she has been exposed to over the past few years relative to proxy care.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Diane Willish. I serve as Executive Director, Administrator of SPAD, the Service Providers Association for Developmental Disabilities. I also am the CEO of United Cerebral Palsy of Georgia, which is a statewide provider of all of the DD services that are offered. And we really appreciate you conducting a hearing a couple of weeks ago earlier in the month where you heard testimony really from some experts, one of whom flew in from out of state, a nurse and a nurse practitioner, that talked about the array of ways that we can effectively administer medications and modify this legislation a little bit to assure for health and safety, enabling us to keep people in the community and while supporting quality care. So really we just want to thank you and ask for your continued support as this bill moves along, and we just hope that we can see it come to fruition. Okay. That's it.
Anyone have a question for Ms. Willis? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mary Lee Quinn.
Good afternoon, Chairman Benton and members of the committee. I am Mary Lee Boatwright Quinn, and I am the Advocacy and Public Policy Manager for the Alzheimer's Association, Georgia chapter. In ways that scientists don't yet understand, the extra copies of genes present in Down syndrome cause developmental problems and health issues. Scientists think that the increased risk of dementia in individuals with Down syndrome may also result from the extra gene. Studies suggest that more than 75% of those with Down syndrome age 65 and older have Alzheimer's disease. Nearly 6 times the percentage of people in this age group who do not have Down syndrome. The Alzheimer's Association believes that expanding upon and improving proxy caregiving can only be beneficial to the people currently impacted and those that will be impacted in the future. In addition, although we don't have exact statistics, we know that many people currently served by HCBS have an Alzheimer's or related dementia diagnosis. Therefore, the Alzheimer's Association Georgia chapter is in full support of ensuring a safe but flexible proxy caregiving program and supports HB 486. And I would also like to say that we would recommend, as Mr. Harper said, that the regulations be consistent from DCH to DBHDD because we serve people who receive services from both of those agencies.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Ms. Quinn? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tom Bauer.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Bauer with Leading Age Georgia. I want to thank the chairman for bringing this bill forward. As I had testified earlier, we were involved in the original proxy caregiving law, and particularly Walter Coffey worked with the governor's health policy advisor on that, and so we know what the original intent was, and I think you're correcting some problems that arose, some unintended consequences by giving some flexibility. So we were certainly in support of this legislation, and I'm assuming that Representative Petrie's amendment that he was referring to was the DCH part, because I think they do need to be involved, because I testified earlier, I think when the personal care home rules were being done, we thought they were a little bit stricter than they needed to be, and that is, of course, in DCH. But thank you very much for bringing this bill.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bauer? Okay, Brandy Sylvan.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Benton, members of the committee. My name is Brandy Sylvan. I'm here with the Department of Community Health, and we wanted to thank you for having us here today to discuss House Bill 486. We're certainly appreciative of your efforts to bring the community and the department together to discuss proxy caregivers and how we can improve the program while maintaining patient safety. The department has no concerns with the proposed language, and I have shared with each of you a proposal that was written jointly by DCH and DBHDD outlining future actions that we intend to take to identify training and informational strategies. And thank you again for including us in this conversation.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Sylvan? I've got a question. Where they suggested a timeline, do you see anything that the department couldn't get that done by September the 1st?
So I am not prepared to be able to definitively answer that. It's
Okay.
not something that was brought to us before that I've had a chance to speak with people at the agency, but I'm certainly happy to get back with you as quickly as possible on that.
Okay. If we go ahead and put it in there, would you be overly upset? Putting a timeline.
I'd be more comfortable if I was able to go back and speak with everyone, but I understand it's up to the will of the
Well,
committee.
we're coming down to crunch time, and
I understand that, sir.
All right. April 15th would be a good timeline.
Oh.
That's a good date for everybody. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Petrie, if you'll step back up there again, and, first of all, okay, if there's, is there anybody else in the committee that has a question or comment before, yes, sir. That's fine, come on up to come on up to there.
Just real briefly, Skin Edge representing the Georgia Senior Living Association, and we represent both personal care homes and assisted living facilities. We also are in support of this measure and appreciate the chairman and the work of the committee and Representative Petrie have done on this bill. We do think a timeline would be appropriate. And also just clarification on the fact that the rules could come from DCH as well as Department of Behavioral Health, we think would be appropriate as well. So we just want to add our support to those suggestions as well.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Egg? Thanks, sir, appreciate you coming in. All right, we've heard all the testimony. I think we're in a posture that I'd be willing to entertain a motion. Representative Rogers.
Time's ready for the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I move that we do pass.
Do I have a second on this?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second now. Any more discussion, and I believe Representative Petrie has, what's your number down there, one? Has an amendment that he wants to add, and then, do you have one that you? He's got both of them,
Yep,
okay?
I've got them both. We'll roll them into one, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, with
All
your
right.
permission.
That'd be fine, go ahead.
Okay. The amendment would be as follows. On line 35, rules shall include selection by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. I'm sorry, line 36, Chairman,
Okay,
is where we change, comma, and the Department of Community Health would be inserted there. So the new language would be on line 36 after disabilities and the Department of Community Health.
go ahead. All right, Representative Kirby.
And then, okay.
Just one quick question, should that be an and or an or? Do you want them from both or one or the other? Or and slash
Yeah.
or?
I personally don't think it matters. You have what I would say is this, I say and because these departments work collaboratively together, and the Department of Community Health actually enforces these rules. But then the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities really depends on these rules. So I think a lot of this is going to be just back and forth collaboration between departments. I think what I'm trying to capture here is to make sure that whatever training is established, whether it be by DBHDD or by DCH, that we capture all of that in the bill.
Okay,
So I'm not so sure. It may take, maybe legislative council can speak to the.
all right, I've
the
got another
language.
question on that as well. Representative Gilligan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious if that comma is actually necessary grammatically speaking, because you're talking about two different departments. We're not talking about three departments. So Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities and the Department of Community Health. I'm not sure that a comma is
Right.
necessarily required.
And again, I asked legislative council maybe to weigh on that. That was the language she and I discussed earlier. But
Okay, thank you.
I'm open to any and all.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the gentleman, when you said and, you're talking about two combined departments. Is there a chance that either one of them could disagree? Because if you say and, both of them have to be in agreement.
Well, here's what I would say. The authority for this section is with the Department of Community Health. So it clearly needs to be inserted here. The Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities is, as I said earlier, they're collaborative. They have a different mission, And they're serving those individuals with mental health and developmental disabilities issues. And so they're typically going to be working together, but all the authority lies with DCH.
Okay,
Who-
but
who
is
are-
that
who
clear,
are-
though, that all the authority relies within DCH? Because if you're saying and, you're combining both of them together, and if there's a disagreement, who has the final say? So that's all I'm pointing out.
Does the
the
department
gentleman.
have an opinion on that?
I mean, are they represented here, either one? of them?
They are. The department is here in
I think they can
front
answer
of me.
that. All right, who has the final, if he connect those two departments by and, then both of them have to be involved.
I
And
am no attorney, so I don't necessarily feel comfortable answering that question, but I don't see necessarily why we would have any concerns with adding the department into that area. But as far as the and/or, I would leave that up to your end.
But
Well-
that's just whether or not you all have, do you have the final say-so if they were involved? Do your department have the final say-so?
I would prefer to check with our council on that.
And Representative, what I would say is that, again, this is speaking to selecting training curricula. And so it seems to me that that's really, if you go on to read, it speaks to, so this is all about selecting training curriculum. It seems to me that DBHDD may do some of that specifically for DD populations, and then there may be, on the aging side, where DBHDD is not involved, they may be, perhaps there may be we're trying to think ahead, there may be different types of training curricula for issues that might relate to Alzheimer's, as we had someone speak to earlier. So, I mean, I think we're capturing both departments, and again, this only speaks to, their selection of training criteria. So it's, I think it's okay, but that's my opinion.
And part of that is the intent with the extended conversations that we've outlined going forward, is just making sure that both agencies as well as stakeholders are all part of the same conversation to make sure that the training we present and put forth is going to make sure we can get this done.
Okay, Ms. Whitten, can you shed some light on this for us?
The language for I don't think I have any. It's not on.
It's on now. It's on now.
When you look
Well, who keeps hitting the button down there? Go ahead.
Okay. When you look at the language that is at line 34, the "or" there is an existing code. And so what we're doing is adding provisions, like you said, that just address this particular training issue. And so that's why "and" was used, because both will be involved in selecting this training. And then hopefully, some of it would be targeted to one of these communities more than another, it would still be a joint effort. And so that's why the "and" was put there. And also, it's been brought to my attention that we've got a little bit of a burp on line 36. When you read it again, if you'll bear with me, such rules shall include selection by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities and the Department of Community Health for approval of training curricula specifically designed for the purpose of implementing, and then I won't read the rest of it if that's okay, but you see there's a little word that "for" got left out.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
and
I
then
see
we
that.
needed to add "and the Department of Community Health." I hope that helps.
But it's all in the same sentence, correct? Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right.
We just added a "for," so we're sticking with the "and" we're adding you're right, it reads better than
All right.
"for" approval.
All right, Ms. Whitten, do you have that down now as we want to do that? Okay. All right, we'll come back to you on that. All right, was there any other amendments that were looking to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to echo Doug Reinecke with Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities and Representative Peachtree is correct. With the execution, the power lies with DCH, so we'd just be a collaborative work effort on the curriculum. Both commissioners work hand in hand each day, and we appreciate all the stakeholders and the meetings that have gone on before us. And just wanted to let you know that yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's one more amendment, and that would be on line 40. On line 40, we want it to read living services, period, with such rules, comma, providers shall train. And then it would go on proxy caregivers in accordance.
So you're adding the word with to begin the sentence, with such
Beginning with
rules,
with,
comma,
comma,
providers shall, so we're deleting the word may and putting the word shall, correct?
Take out may and permit.
May permit, okay.
providers shall, we're eliminating may, permit, and inserting shall,
Okay,
inserting providers shall, and eliminating to. So we're eliminating may permit and to. So such rules, comma, with such rules, comma, providers shall train proxy caregivers in accordance. And that would be the entirety of line 40.
okay.
And again, I think it just makes it clear, more clear. Yes. Living serv- Here it is.
Want to make sure we get this down right, because we're going to have to go back and read them again and make sure that we get everything in there right. Ms. Gilligan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Now that we have added, and we're now referencing 2 departments on line 79, how do we phrase that? Because currently it's just approved by the department.
Services.
So now we're talking 2 different departments have an opportunity to provide.
Okay, I
Or
guess
to
we need to
present.
add a S to that then.
Okay.
Living services, period. Providers shall train. Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to the representative's comment.
Yes.
I think that further in this section, it does refer, as she alluded, to the department.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is when it refers to the department here, that is referring, because of where it's located in the code, and again, we have legislative counsel here to confirm this, but we're speaking to the Department of Community Health. Because again, this is all under the authority of the Department of Community Health. So the language that we added about DBHDD was because much of the effort involved in training, et cetera, may well be done by DBHDD, but the authority for this, again, is under DCH. So I think it said, so you were probably suggesting maybe it should be departments plural. I don't think that would be necessary, but again, I think that's a good question, and perhaps we should ask legislative counsel.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Gilligan?
Yes, in a way. I mean,
Okay.
I would like to know.
I think it's a good question.
Okay. All right.
I'm pretty confident that's where we are. but let's-
Representative. Huh? All right, Representative Roger.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but I've got another thing, and I am, for protocol purposes, withdrawing my motion, and I have got full confidence in this committee's ability to make another motion subject to the amendments. With that, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And so I move.
All right, Representative Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. To Representative Peachtree, on line 79, we have department. Would it be better, more of clarity if you just put that specific department name there? Since you didn't want to put an S there to include 2, but would it clarify it more, just a suggestion, if you actually put that department there?
Yes, sir. Good question, Representative. I would defer to legislative counsel.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just saying if it were just as opposed to departments with an S, it just says the Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities approval. Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. Are we right now we're discussing line 79 where it has department.
Yes.
Someone had made a suggestion to add an S for departments because it's two different departments. But if I understand the representative with the amendment, the department that they're referring to, the reason why you don't need the S is the Department of Behavioral Health and Development and Disabilities.
Community health.
Community Health, I'm sorry. So that's the actual department you're referring to. And so my suggestion was, do you want to put that there so it's clear in terms of which department you're referring to?
And I think, first of all, I want to make sure I'm accurate. And I think we need legislative counsel to confirm that.
Okay.
And I'm open either way. I think we're all trying to get to the same thing. But the language should be right, and so I would defer to the experts in that regard.
Yeah, it does, the little department refers to the Department of Community Health. And so
Okay.
if you, that's why we don't define it again. But if you want to add, a reference to the Department of,
Community Health.
of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, then we would add it there. But, departments wouldn't be correct because of the way it's defined.
Right.
Okay.
So we'd have to either be specific, but it sounds like indeed, because of where it's located, when it says department, it means DCH, as I had hoped was the case.
Okay. All right, so we've got the two amendments, and I'm gonna get legislative counsel to read those back to us in just a minute because we'll take them in reverse order. But I wanted to look again at the suggestion of having a timeline in the bill. And Ms. Whitten, where would we need to put that?
Well, I just thought we could just make a paragraph E at the end, I mean, not subparagraph, but, paragraph E. Such rule and regulations shall be promulgated pursuant to this paragraph no later than September 1st, 2017, and just put it in the bill
Okay.
rather than getting into an enacting date and all
Okay, all right.
that, if that.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
All
All right. So that's the third amendment. So, all right. Anybody else yes, ma'am?
I just wanted to say I did hear back
Okay.
from someone over there, and there are some concerns just with the rulemaking process of being able to meet a September 1st deadline.
All right. What do they think their deadline could be?
With all due respect to the committee, if we could just circle back with our commissioners.
Well, the thing about it is if it passes out here and gets over to the Senate, then there's probably gonna be a problem getting a date put in there.
Well, and unfortunately, we just haven't, we didn't know this was going to.
Well,
be
I didn't
before
either.
us today, so I haven't had time to kind of fully vet what that timeline would look
All
like.
right. How about if we put the timeline in there and then y'all can decide and you can talk to the Senate and get it changed and I'll agree to the change.
Okay,
That-
so
that-
we're trying to be cooperative. and
Okay.
don't wanna
Oh, yeah, we are
be
too.
fighting it over there.
Cause we wanna get it done right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, we have three amendments to consider. The first amendment, legislative counsel, you can sit down right here.
So we're gonna do this in reverse order?
Reverse order, so the
Okay.
last one first.
All right, sir. If you'll look, after line 81, we're just gonna add a capital E. Such rules and regulations shall be promulgated pursuant to this paragraph no later than September 1st, 2017.
Okay, that's the first amendment. I have a move. Do I have a second? Second. All right, I have a move and a second. Do I have any other discussion? Let me. Mr. Petrie, do you have any comments on the amendment?
No, sir.
Okay, have a move and a second. All those in favor would, signal by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. So that amendment is passed. That will become part of the bill. Okay, the second amendment, if you'll read it.
Okay, on line 40, starts with living services. After the period, add with such rules, comma, providers shall train proxy caregivers in accordance.
Okay. All right, I have a move and a second on that amendment. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that one? All right, we have a move and a second. All those in favor, if you would, approve by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, that amendment passes. And the third amendment.
All right, on line 36, after disabilities, and the Department of Community Health for approval.
Okay, and then the sentence reads out
yeah.
for approval of training curriculum. Okay. All right, we have a move. Do I have a second? All right, I have a move and a second. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of that amendment, if you would, approve by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay. We have the bill that has been amended, so I now need a motion for House Bill 486 as amended by the committee. All right, I have a move. Do I have a second? Do I have any other discussion? Mr. Petrie, do you have any other comments you want to make on the bill?
No, sir.
Is it,
I think everyone understands what we're trying to do here. It sounds
okay?
like
And I want to point out to the department that if y'all get another date, we'll move to get that changed, but I'd like to get it in here now.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I think what the concern is with our board meetings happening every other month, be able to adjust for public comment and to vet the process and the rules and regs that are going to be attempted to change. And that was kind of the concern of just having enough time. So.
Okay, when's your next board meeting?
We do
Monthly. So, but with collaboration, that's just a concern.
Well,
So.
I'd rather go ahead and get something in the bill, and then
Sure,
and if you want, and if you come up with a different date, if we can get it over to the Senate, we'll get it changed. We want to be flexible with y'all, but I'm afraid that if we don't put a date in there, that it tends to slow down, as the gentleman said. So we'd like to see something in there, and we'll
let you know. Just a date.
Okay,
so.
that'll be fine. Thank you. All right, we have a motion for House Bill 486 as amended by the committee. We have a second. Are there any other comments from the committee? All right, all those in favor of the motion, if you would, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The bill passes as amended. Mr. Petrie, you can probably ask for this bill tomorrow in rules.
do so, Chairman.
All right. With that, we're adjourned. We thank everybody for coming in today. Thank you.